Marcus Johnson checked his watch as he drove down the empty highway. It was almost midnight. The road stretched dark and quiet ahead of him, with only his headlights breaking through the darkness. After working 12 hours at Memorial Hospital as a respiratory therapist, his eyes felt heavy, but his apartment was just 15 minutes away. The radio played soft jazz as Marcus thought about his plans for the weekend. His son Jamal would be coming over, and they planned to go fishing at the lake. These moments with his 15-year-old son were precious, especially since the divorce 3 years ago. Maybe we'll catch something big this time, Marcus said to himself, smiling. Last time they'd caught nothing but small bass, but Jamal hadn't seemed to mind. The boy just enjoyed spending time with his father. The highway curved slightly, and Marcus noticed flashing blue and red lights ahead. A police cruiser had pulled someone over on the shoulder. Marcus eased his foot off the gas pedal, following the unwritten rule to slow down when passing stopped emergency vehicles. As he got closer, he saw a white officer standing beside a small red car. The officer was talking to the driver through the window, flashlight in hand. Just an ordinary traffic stop, Marcus thought. Then everything changed in an instant. A pair of bright headlights appeared in the opposite lane, moving too fast and swerving wildly. Even from a distance, Marcus could tell something was wrong. The vehicle, a large pickup truck, crossed the center line without slowing down. "Watch out!" Marcus shouted uselessly inside his car, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. The truck slammed directly into the parked police cruiser. The sound of metal crushing metal filled the night air. The impact was so violent that the police car spun around and flipped onto its side. The officer, who had been standing outside, was thrown to the ground. Marcus pulled over immediately, his heart racing. He grabbed his phone and dialed 911 as he jumped out of his car. "There's been a serious accident on Highway 16, about 3 miles east of the Franklin exit," he told the dispatcher. "A truck hit a police car. An officer is down. Send ambulances." The truck driver stumbled out of his vehicle, clearly drunk. He swayed on his feet before sitting down hard on the pavement, head in his hands. Marcus ran toward the officer who had been thrown to the ground. The man was conscious but dazed, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. "Don't move," Marcus told him, kneeling down. "Help is coming." Then Marcus heard something that made his blood run cold. A groan coming from inside the police cruiser. There was another officer inside the car. Marcus moved quickly to the damaged vehicle. Through the cracked windshield, he could see a second officer trapped in the driver's seat. The man wasn't moving. Then Marcus saw the flames. Small at first, they flickered from underneath the hood of the police car. Within seconds, they grew larger. "Hey, can you hear me?" Marcus shouted, trying to get the trapped officer's attention. There was no response. The flames grew higher. Black smoke began pouring from the engine. Marcus knew he had very little time before the entire vehicle would be engulfed. Without thinking about his own safety, Marcus ran to the crushed driver's side door and pulled with all his strength. It wouldn't budge. The smoke was getting thicker, making it hard to breathe. Marcus coughed but didn't back away. Inside, the unconscious officer remained trapped, completely unaware of the danger closing in around him. The decision Marcus made next would change both their lives forever. The flames grew higher, licking at the underside of the police cruiser. Marcus knew he had only seconds to act before the car would be completely engulfed. He ran to the passenger side, hoping that door might open, but it was also jammed from the impact. "Come on," Marcus shouted in frustration, pulling at the handle with all his strength. The heat was becoming intense. Sweat poured down Marcus's face as he looked around desperately for something to break the window. He spotted a tire iron that had fallen from the drunk driver's truck during the collision. Marcus grabbed it and smashed the passenger window with one powerful swing. Glass shattered inward, and Marcus quickly cleared the sharp edges with his sleeve. The smoke pouring out made him cough and his eyes water, but he leaned in anyway. The officer inside was a white man in his early 30s. His face was cut from the crash, and he was pinned by the crushed steering column. His name tag read Coalines. "Officer Collins," Marcus called. "Can you hear me?" The man's eyes fluttered but didn't open. He was alive but unconscious. A small explosion from the engine compartment made Marcus jump back momentarily. The first flames were now visible inside the car, spreading from the dashboard. The clock was ticking. Marcus reached through the broken window and unlocked the door. He opened it and leaned in, the heat nearly unbearable. The seatbelt was still fastened, holding Officer Collins in place. Marcus pressed the release button, but it was stuck from the damage. "God, help me," Marcus whispered. He pulled out his pocket knife and cut through the seatbelt strap. Now came the hardest part. Collins was pinned by the crushed steering wheel, and the dashboard had collapsed onto his legs. Marcus braced himself against the doorframe and pulled with every ounce of strength he had. The officer didn't budge. Behind him, Marcus could hear voices. People from other cars had stopped to watch, but no one was coming to help. "Someone help me," Marcus yelled, but the bystanders kept their distance from the burning vehicle. The flames were now spreading across the ceiling of the car. Time was running out. Marcus took a deep breath and crawled further into the vehicle. The smoke burned his lungs, and he could feel the heat scorching his skin. He got behind Officer Collins and pushed his shoulder against the back of the seat. With one arm wrapped around the officer's chest, Marcus pushed with his legs against the car frame and pulled with everything he had. Something shifted. The steering column moved just enough. "Come on," Marcus grunted through clenched teeth. With one final surge of desperate strength, Marcus pulled Officer Collins free. The unconscious man was heavy, but adrenaline gave Marcus the power he needed. He dragged Collins across the seat and out through the passenger door. Just as they fell to the ground outside, the car was engulfed in flames. The heat was so intense that Marcus had to keep pulling, dragging the officer further away to safety. Once they were a safe distance from the burning vehicle, Marcus checked the officer's vital signs. Collins was breathing, but his pulse was weak. "Stay with me, officer," Marcus said, placing his jacket under the man's head. The wail of sirens filled the air as emergency vehicles approached. Marcus sat back on his heels, suddenly aware of the burns on his hands and arms. His lungs ached from the smoke, and cuts from the broken glass stung his skin. A paramedic rushed over, looking first at Officer Collins, then at Marcus. "You pulled him out?" The paramedic asked in disbelief, looking at the car which was now completely engulfed in flames. Marcus nodded, too exhausted to speak. "You're a hero, man," the paramedic said, squeezing Marcus's shoulder before turning his attention to the injured officer. Marcus watched as more emergency personnel arrived. The injured officer was carefully placed on a stretcher and loaded into an ambulance. The night air was filled with flashing lights, radio chatter, and the sound of fire extinguishers battling the burning police car. As Marcus sat there catching his breath, he had no idea how this single act of courage would change his life. The next few hours passed in a blur for Marcus. The paramedics insisted on checking him over despite his protests that he was fine. His hands were bandaged for minor burns, and the cuts on his arms from the broken glass were cleaned and dressed. "You should really go to the hospital," a young female paramedic told him. "You inhaled a lot of smoke." Marcus shook his head. "I know what smoke inhalation looks like. I'm a respiratory therapist. I'll be okay." A police officer approached with a notepad. "Sir, we need to take your statement about what happened." Marcus sat on the back bumper of an ambulance as he explained everything. The officer wrote quickly, looking up occasionally with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. "And your name and contact information?" The officer asked when Marcus finished his account. "Marcus Johnson." He provided his phone number and address. "Mr. Johnson, what you did tonight was extraordinary," the officer said, closing his notepad. "Not many people would risk their lives like that." Marcus shrugged. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," the officer said firmly. "Most people would have stood back and waited for help. Officer Collins would be dead if you hadn't acted." As if on cue, a detective walked over. "The driver of the truck is being charged with DUI and reckless endangerment. He had a blood alcohol level more than twice the legal limit." Marcus nodded tiredly. It was now nearly 2:00 a.m., and the crash scene was finally being cleared. The wrecked police car was a blackened shell, loaded onto a tow truck. "How is Officer Collins?" Marcus asked. "Stable condition. They took him to Memorial Hospital," the detective replied. "He has some broken ribs, a concussion, and smoke inhalation, but he'll recover. Thanks to you." A news van pulled up, and a reporter with a cameraman jumped out. Marcus noticed and quickly stood up. "I need to get home," he said to the police officers. "I have to work tomorrow afternoon." The detective handed Marcus a card. We'll need to follow up with some questions, and I'm sure Officer Collins will want to thank you personally when he's recovered. Marcus nodded and walked quickly to his car before the news crew could reach him. The last thing he wanted was to be on television. He just wanted to go home, shower, and sleep. The drive to his apartment took only 10 minutes, but it felt much longer. The adrenaline had worn off, and now every muscle in Marcus's body ached. His throat felt raw from the smoke, and his bandaged hands stung as he gripped the steering wheel. When he finally reached his small apartment, Marcus took a long, hot shower, careful to keep his bandages dry. As the water ran over his tired body, the events of the night played over and over in his mind. The crash, the flames, the unconscious officer, how close they both came to death. Marcus dried off and collapsed into bed. Despite his exhaustion, sleep didn't come easily. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the burning car, felt the heat of the flames. When he finally drifted off, his phone alarm seemed to ring only minutes later. It was 11 o'clock a.m. Marcus had managed just a few hours of troubled sleep. He checked his phone and saw 3 missed calls from numbers he didn't recognize. There were also several text messages from his ex-wife, Diana. Saw the news this morning. Was that you at the accident? Call me. Marcus frowned. He hadn't given his name to any reporters. How did the story get out so fast? He opened his news app and felt his stomach drop. There on the screen was a grainy photo taken by a bystander at the accident scene. It showed Marcus dragging Officer Collins away from the burning vehicle. The headline read, "Local hero rescues police officer from burning car." The story was brief, mentioning that a good Samaritan had saved an officer's life but had left before being identified. The police department was apparently looking for the hero to properly thank him. Marcus put down his phone and sighed deeply. He had never wanted attention or recognition. He had just done what he thought was right in the moment. As he made coffee and checked his bandages, Marcus had no idea that his phone would soon ring again, with a call that would change everything. Marcus sipped his coffee and winced as pain shot through his burned hands. The skin was red and blistered beneath the bandages. He would need to change the dressings before his shift at the hospital later. His phone rang again, another unknown number. Marcus hesitated, then answered. "Hello, is this Marcus Johnson?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, speaking," Marcus replied cautiously. "Mr. Johnson, this is Police Chief Miranda Tate from the Riverside Police Department." Marcus sat up straighter. The police chief herself was calling him? "I'm calling about the incident last night," Chief Tate continued. "One of my officers, Ryan Collins, is alive today because of your quick action and bravery." "I just did what needed to be done, ma'am," Marcus said, uncomfortable with the praise. "Officer Collins's wife and 2 young daughters would disagree. They still have a husband and father because of you." Her voice was warm but firm. "The department would like to properly thank you." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "That's really not necessary. We're holding our annual Community Heroes Award ceremony next Friday," Chief Tate interrupted. "We would be honored if you would attend as our special guest. The mayor will be there, along with other community leaders." The thought of standing on a stage in front of important people made Marcus's stomach twist. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm not looking for recognition." "Mr. Johnson," Chief Tate's tone softened. "In times like these, when relations between police and the black community are often strained, your story is important. Not just what you did, but why you did it. It reminds us all of our common humanity." Marcus remained silent, thinking about her words. "Plus," she added, "Officer Collins is being released from the hospital tomorrow. He's asking to meet you." Marcus thought about the unconscious man he had pulled from the burning car. He had risked his life for a stranger, someone he had never even spoken to. "All right," he finally said, "I'll meet with Officer Collins. But about this ceremony, just think about it." Chief Tate said quickly, "No pressure. We can discuss it when you meet Ryan. How does tomorrow afternoon work for you? Say, 2 p.m. at our main station?" Marcus checked his mental calendar. He wasn't scheduled to work until the evening shift. "That should be fine." "Excellent. I'll text you the address. Thank you again, Mr. Johnson. What you did was truly heroic." After they hung up, Marcus sat quietly for a long moment. His phone buzzed with a text message from Chief Tate with the address, followed immediately by another call. This time it was his son, Jamal. "Dad, is it true? My friends are saying you saved a cop from a burning car." The excitement in his son's voice was unmistakable. "How did you hear about that?" Marcus asked. "It's all over social media. Someone posted a video of you pulling the officer away from the car. It's got like thousands of shares already." Marcus closed his eyes. "Video?" This was getting out of hand quickly. "Dad, are you still there?" Jamal asked. "Yeah, I'm here," Marcus said. "It's not as dramatic as it sounds. I just did what anyone would do." "No way. My friends are calling you a superhero. Even my teacher mentioned it in class today." Pride filled Jamal's voice, and despite his own discomfort with the attention, Marcus couldn't help but feel touched that his son was proud of him. "Are you okay? Did you get hurt?" Jamal suddenly sounded worried. "Just some minor burns and cuts. Nothing serious. Mom says I can come over tonight instead of waiting until the weekend. Is that okay?" "Of course it is," Marcus said, smiling for the first time since the accident. After they hung up, Marcus turned on the TV. Sure enough, the local news was running the story. The grainy cell phone video showed Marcus dragging Officer Collins away from the car moments before it was fully engulfed in flames. The reporter was saying, "Police are calling this an extraordinary act of heroism." The identity of the Good Samaritan was initially unknown, but sources now confirm he is Marcus Johnson, a respiratory therapist at Memorial Hospital. Marcus quickly turned off the TV. He needed to prepare himself for whatever would come next. His phone rang yet again. The screen showed his brother's name. "Calvin." "Hey," Marcus answered. "Man, what were you thinking?" Calvin's voice was tense. Getting involved with the police like that? This was going to be a long day, and Marcus had a feeling it was just the beginning. "Calvin, I couldn't just let him die," Marcus said, leaning back against his kitchen counter. His brother's frustrated sigh came through the phone. I know. That's who you are. Always helping people." Calvin paused. "But brother, you know how these things go. Today you're a hero. Tomorrow they forget all about you, or worse." Marcus understood his brother's concern. 3 years ago, Calvin had been pulled over, dragged from his car, and handcuffed in front of his children for a broken taillight. The officers had claimed he matched a description of a robbery suspect. "The police chief wants me to attend some award ceremony," Marcus said, changing the bandage on his left hand as he talked. "Of course she does. Great photo opportunity, right? Black man saves white cop. They'll use your image for their diversity brochures for years." Marcus winced, both from the pain in his hand and his brother's words. "Maybe, but what if it does some good?" Chief Tate mentioned improving police relations with the black community. "One ceremony won't fix decades of problems," Calvin replied. "Just be careful, that's all I'm saying." After they hung up, Marcus checked his social media accounts. His normally quiet profiles had exploded with activity. Friend requests, messages from people he hadn't spoken to in years, and comments ranging from praise to criticism. One comment caught his eye. Would a white civilian get the same recognition for saving a black officer? Doubtful. Another read, "This is what real courage looks like. No politics, just humanity." The debate raged in the comments section, with Marcus's act becoming a symbol for everyone's pre-existing views on race and policing. It made him uncomfortable to see his actions twisted into political arguments. His phone rang again. This time it was Diana, his ex-wife. "Jamal is so excited to see you tonight," she said after they exchanged greetings. "He's telling everyone his dad is a hero." "I'm no hero," Marcus said automatically. "You saved a man's life, Marcus. That's pretty heroic in my book." Her voice softened. "Just like when you saved me during my asthma attack on our third date. Being a hero is who you are." Marcus smiled at the memory. "That was different. I just knew what to do because of my training." "And last night? What made you run toward a burning car instead of away from it?" Marcus thought for a moment. "I don't know. I just couldn't stand by and do nothing." "That's exactly what makes you special," Diana said. "Always has." Their conversation shifted to Jamal's upcoming visit. Despite their divorce, they had maintained a respectful relationship for their son's sake. After hanging up, Marcus checked the time. He needed to get ready for his shift at the hospital. As he gathered his things, his phone dinged with a text message from a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Johnson, this is Amy Collins, Officer Ryan Collins's wife. I just wanted to thank you for saving my husband's life. Our daughters still have their father because of you. God bless you." Attached was a photo of Officer Collins in his hospital bed, giving a weak thumbs up, with two young girls beside him. Both were holding hand-drawn cards that said thank you. Marcus stared at the image for a long time. The girls couldn't have been more than 7 and 9 years old. Their smiles were bright despite the worry in their eyes as they sat next to their bandaged father. This was why he had acted. Not because the man was a police officer, but because he was a human being. A father, a husband. As Marcus drove to work, his mind was filled with conflicting thoughts. His brother's warnings competed with Chief Tate's invitation and the image of those little girls with their father. Whatever happened next, Marcus knew he couldn't go back to his quiet, ordinary life. For better or worse, his split-second decision had set something bigger in motion. Tomorrow, he would meet Officer Collins face-to-face for the first time since pulling him from the burning car. And that meeting would only be the beginning. The police station looked much larger in person than it had appeared on TV. Marcus parked his car in the visitors section and sat for a moment, gathering his thoughts. His hands still hurt from the burns, and he had changed the bandages again this morning. Just a quick meeting, he told himself. Thank the man for his service, accept his thanks, and go home. When Marcus entered the building, the officer at the front desk looked up. Recognition flashed across her face immediately. "Mr. Johnson?" she asked. Marcus nodded. "We've been expecting you," she smiled warmly. "Chief Tate asked me to bring you to her office as soon as you arrived." Marcus followed her through a maze of hallways. Officers stopped what they were doing to look at him as he passed. Some nodded respectfully. Others simply stared. Marcus kept his eyes forward, feeling increasingly uncomfortable with the attention. The front desk officer knocked on a door marked Chief Miranda Tate. "Come in," called a voice from inside. Chief Tate was a tall woman with short gray hair and a commanding presence. She rose from behind her desk with a wide smile. "Mr. Johnson, thank you for coming." She extended her hand. Marcus shook it carefully, mindful of his bandages. "Please, have a seat," she said, gesturing to a chair. "Officer Collins will join us shortly. How are your hands?" "Getting better," Marcus replied. "Should heal completely in a week or so." Chief Tate nodded. "The department would be happy to cover any medical expenses related to your injuries." "That's not necessary," Marcus said quickly. "My insurance through the hospital covers it." A knock at the door interrupted them. "Come in," Chief Tate called. The door opened, and a man entered slowly, using a cane for support. His face was bruised, with a bandage covering one side. But what struck Marcus most was how young Officer Collins looked. In the burning car, Marcus hadn't noticed that the officer couldn't be older than 30. "Mr. Johnson," Collins said, his voice thick with emotion, "I've been waiting to meet you properly." Marcus stood and carefully shook the officer's outstretched hand. "Please, call me Marcus." "And I'm Ryan," the officer replied. "I can't even begin to thank you for what you did." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Anyone would have done the same. Ryan shook his head firmly. "No, they wouldn't. I watched the video. Everyone else stood back. You were the only one who ran toward the fire." An awkward silence filled the room until Chief Tate cleared her throat. "I'll give you two some privacy," she said, moving toward the door. "Ryan, you can use my office as long as you need." After she left, Ryan lowered himself carefully into the chair opposite Marcus. "My wife showed you the picture of our girls?" he asked. Marcus nodded. "Beautiful family." "Emma is 9, and Lily just turned 7 last month," Ryan said, pulling out his phone to show more pictures. "Emma wants to be a doctor. Lily changes her mind every week, but right now she wants to be a firefighter." Marcus smiled. "My son Jamal is 15. He's talking about becoming a respiratory therapist like me." "You have a son." Ryan's expression brightened. "I didn't know that. He lives with his mother most of the time, but I see him every weekend." A look of recognition crossed Ryan's face. "Wait, Johnson, did you grow up on the east side? Near Oakwood Park?" Marcus nodded, surprised. "I did. My family lived on Cedar Street. I grew up on Maple, just 2 blocks over, Ryan said, leaning forward. I moved there when I was 10, after my parents divorced. Must have been about 20 years ago now. Small world, Marcus said. I played basketball at that park almost every day. The courts with the chain nets? Ryan asked, getting excited. Man, those games were legendary. The older guys would let us play if they needed an extra body. That was my cousin Andrew who organized those games, Marcus said, memories flooding back. He was 5 years older than me. Ryan's eyes widened. Andrew Johnson. Tall guy, could dunk like it was nothing. That's him, Marcus confirmed, genuinely surprised. He let me play a few times when I was a teenager, Ryan said, shaking his head in disbelief. I can't believe we might have been at the same games. For the first time since entering the police station, Marcus felt himself relax. The conversation flowed naturally as they discovered more connections. A favorite corner store, a notorious middle school teacher, even a mutual childhood friend. What had started as an awkward meeting between strangers was transforming into something neither man had expected. The rediscovery of a shared history and the beginning of an unlikely friendship. 1 week later, Marcus stood backstage at the Riverside Community Center, adjusting his tie nervously. The annual Police Department Community Heroes Award ceremony was much bigger than he had expected. Through a gap in the curtains, you could see at least 300 people filling the auditorium. You doing okay? Ryan Collins appeared beside him, walking more easily now but still using a cane. Not really, Marcus admitted. I'd never been good with crowds. Ryan nodded understandingly. Just speak from the heart. That's what Chief Tate told me my first time giving a speech. In the front row, Marcus could see his son Jamal sitting proudly next to Diana. His brother Calvin had surprised him by showing up as well, though he looked uncomfortable in his suit. On the other side of the aisle sat Ryan's wife Amy with their 2 daughters, both wearing pretty dresses and fidgeting in their seats. Ladies and gentlemen, Chief Tate's voice boomed through the speakers. Today we honor ordinary citizens who have done extraordinary things. Marcus listened as she spoke about community, sacrifice, and courage. The ceremony had already recognized several other local heroes. A teacher who had performed CPR on a student, a teenager who had pulled an elderly couple from a flooding car, and a store clerk who had disarmed a robber. Our final honoree tonight needs little introduction, Chief Tate continued. Many of you have seen the video that captured his remarkable act of bravery. The large screen behind her lit up with the now familiar footage of Marcus pulling Ryan from the burning police cruiser. The audience fell silent as they watched. Marcus Johnson didn't hesitate when he saw Officer Ryan Collins trapped in a burning vehicle. Chief Tate said when the video ended. He didn't stop to consider his own safety. He didn't worry about who was in that car. He simply acted, because that's what heroes do. She turned toward the side of the stage. Please welcome Marcus Johnson and Officer Ryan Collins. The audience erupted in applause as Marcus walked onto the stage with Ryan beside him. The bright lights made it hard to see the crowd, which was actually a relief for Marcus. Chief Tate presented Marcus with a plaque. The inscription read, "For extraordinary courage and selflessness in the face of danger, your actions remind us of our common humanity." As cameras flashed, Marcus stepped to the microphone. The speech he had prepared suddenly felt wrong. Too formal, too rehearsed. I'm not good at public speaking, he began honestly. And I'm still not comfortable being called a hero. The audience quieted, hanging on his words. A week ago, I was just driving home from work. I saw an accident and did what I thought anyone would do. Marcus paused, looking at Ryan standing beside him. I didn't know Officer Collins. I didn't know he grew up in my neighborhood. I didn't know he had 2 beautiful daughters and a wife who loves him. Marcus turned back to the audience. In that moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was that a person needed help. His eyes found Jamal in the front row, looking up at him with pride. We live in complicated times, Marcus continued. My own son is 15, and I've had to have difficult conversations with him about how to interact safely with police. My brother and many of my friends have had negative experiences with law enforcement. A tension filled the room, but Marcus pressed on. But the officer in that burning car wasn't a uniform to me. He was a human being in danger. And maybe that's something we all need to remember more often, to see each other's humanity first. Ryan stepped forward and, in an unplanned moment, embraced Marcus. The audience rose to their feet, applauding loudly. What began as a formal ceremony transformed into something more powerful and genuine. Even Calvin, Marcus noticed with surprise, was standing and clapping. As the applause continued, Marcus saw tears in the eyes of Ryan's wife. His own son was beaming with pride. For a moment, in this room at least, it seemed that something important had shifted. What had started with a crisis on a dark highway was becoming something no one could have predicted. A bridge being built between two communities, one friendship at a time. 3 months after the award ceremony, Marcus sat in the community center gymnasium watching people file in for the first official meeting of the Bridge Builders program. The idea had come from a conversation between Marcus and Ryan over coffee just weeks after the ceremony. "Your speech changed something in me," Ryan had admitted that day. "Made me think about how we could turn this moment into something lasting." Now, rows of chairs were arranged in a circle. Community members, many Black and Hispanic residents from the East Side neighborhoods, sat cautiously opposite several uniformed police officers. The tension in the room was thick enough to touch. Marcus checked his watch. Ryan was running late. Without him, Marcus wasn't sure if this would work. His brother Calvin had agreed to attend but was standing by the refreshment table with his arms crossed, looking skeptical. "You sure about this?" Calvin had asked earlier. "One good cop doesn't fix a broken system." "It's a start," Marcus had replied. "Change has to begin somewhere." The door swung open, and Ryan hurried in. He wasn't alone. Behind him came Chief Tate and, surprisingly, Mayor Wilson himself. "Sorry we're late," Ryan said, taking a seat next to Marcus. "The mayor wanted to join us when he heard what we were doing." Marcus nodded, secretly pleased by the high-level support. It meant the department was taking this seriously. "Welcome, everyone," Marcus began once everyone was seated. His voice was steadier now than it had been at the ceremony. 3 months of media interviews had helped with his public speaking. "Thank you for coming to our first Bridge Builders meeting." He explained the program's simple concept: regular meetings between police officers and community members to discuss concerns, build relationships, and work on specific problems together. "This isn't about quick fixes," Marcus said. "It's about the slow work of understanding each other. Officer Collins and I will share our story first, then we want to hear yours." Ryan spoke next, his voice honest and direct. "Before the accident, I thought I was one of the good ones. I treated everyone with respect, followed procedures. But being pulled from that burning car by Marcus made me realize how little I really knew about the community I served." He described how the accident had forced him to reevaluate everything. "I've been a cop for 8 years, but I never told my fellow officers that I grew up in the East Side. I was almost ashamed of it. That changes now." As Marcus and Ryan shared their developing friendship, the stiffness in the room began to ease slightly. Then they opened the floor for others to speak. A young Black woman raised her hand first. "My brother was arrested last year for a crime he didn't commit. He spent 2 months in jail before the charges were dropped. How are we supposed to trust you after experiences like that?" An uncomfortable silence fell. This was the real test. One of the officers, an older Hispanic man, leaned forward. "That's exactly why I'm here. That shouldn't have happened to your brother. We need to do better." The conversation that followed wasn't easy. Voices rose, old grievances emerged. A few times, Marcus had to step in as mediator when emotions ran too high. "We're not going to solve decades of problems in one meeting," he reminded everyone. "This is just the beginning." By the end of the 2-hour session, no major breakthroughs had occurred. But people who had entered as strangers were talking directly to each other. Officer Rodriguez had promised to look into the case of the young woman's brother. A community elder had invited officers to a neighborhood barbecue. Small steps, but important ones. As people began to leave, Ryan turned to Marcus. "Did we make a difference today?" Marcus watched his brother Calvin deep in conversation with a young officer. They weren't smiling, but they were listening to each other. "I think we did," Marcus said. "Not in the way that makes headlines, but in the way that matters." Outside, the local news crew that had been following Marcus's story since the night of the fire waited for a statement. "How would you describe today's meeting?" the reporter asked, holding out her microphone. Marcus thought for a moment before answering. There's a difference between being a hero for one night and doing the hard work every day. Today was about the hard work. The real heroism isn't running into a burning car. It's showing up, listening, and being willing to change. As Marcus walked to his car where Jamal waited, he realized that what had started with that desperate rescue on a dark highway had become something far more important. The beginning of a journey that would require more courage than facing any fire.